Stop him, armed terrorist. Don't let him escape. That was Karen's shriek, echoing across my ranch at sunrise, loud enough to startle the cows 2 pastures over. You ever wake up and realize your life just turned into a B movie? Because let me tell you, nothing. Says good morning like a full-blown HOA enforcement squad, guns drawn, lights flashing, storming your land like they're after El Chapo himself. They forced me face down in the dirt right there on the land my grandfather cleared with his own hands, while Karen strutted around red-faced and gloating like she'd just saved the country from imminent doom. But the real joke, the dangerous weapons she'd just confiscated, those were the only things standing between this community and the very disaster her little operation was about to set loose. By the next morning, the universe served up karma on a silver platter. Something the size of an ATV crashed right through Karen's front door, curled up and fell asleep on her 12 grand armchair, while the whole neighborhood watched from a safe distance, coffee in hand, waiting for the show. Her scream wasn't fear exactly. It was the sound of someone realizing they'd opened the gates of hell and left the keys on the welcome mat. Let me back up a sec, because this whole mess started 8 months earlier, the day Karen Whitmore landed in our quiet patch of nowhere, waved some official-looking papers, and crowned herself president of the Meadowbrook Estates HOA. I'd been on this ranch 40 years, my family 3 generations before me, and never needed permission to protect our cattle or our kids from what lurked in the woods. But here she was, clipboard thick as a phone book, insisting she was there to execute an emergency wildlife safety order. Real government stamps, too. Looked official if you didn't know any better. She rattled off the serial number of my grandfather's Winchester. Hell, she knew more about my gun safe than I did. Ammo in the toolbox, cleaning kit in the desk even, which lock on the gate I trusted most. That's not paperwork, that's surveillance. I felt my jaw tighten, hands checking the latch out of pure habit. Ma'am, I told her with all due respect, this land's been safe under my family's watch longer than you've been alive. Didn't matter. She had 2 security goons and a sheriff's deputy at the ready, and when she demanded the Winchester personally, well, you don't forget the look on someone's face when they pry a family heirloom out of your hands. Felt like being robbed at gunpoint by someone wearing a Halloween badge. She promised I'd get my gun back receipt and all once the wildlife situation was resolved. Then she rolled away in her sparkling SUV Gravel, crunching under tires my grandfather laid by hand, thinking she'd pulled off the perfect power play. Only growing up on a ranch teaches you to notice what city folks miss, like how her emergency order was signed by a clerk who'd retired 6 months ago and dated on a Sunday when the county office was locked tight. And there hadn't been a wildlife incident here since raccoons ransacked Mrs. Henderson's garbage 3 months back. I spent the rest of that day on the phone first to Tommy Martinez, my old high school buddy turned sheriff's deputy. When a cop friend says we need to talk in person, you listen. We met at Murphy's Diner, where the coffee's as old as the furniture, and Tommy laid out a stack of forged wildlife reports, all supposedly signed by folks who'd never seen a bear, coyote, or rabbit anything. He slid them across the table, voice low. These aren't just fake, Jack, they're coordinated. And Councilman Pierce wants it kept quiet. Turns out 5 families bordering the future site of some Meadowbrook luxury resort and spa, yeah, I hadn't heard of it either, had their guns taken too. All of us in the way of a real estate scheme dressed up as community safety. That night sleep wouldn't come. Not fear, just a heavy anger, a rancher's kind. When dawn hit, I walked the woods, eyes sharp for anything out of place. Found ATV tracks fresh and piles of animal feed hunting bait right where it shouldn't be. Someone was luring wild boar onto my property, and I'd bet my last dollar I knew who. So I set trail cams. 3 nights I caught Karen, night vision goggles, industrial feed, marking paths like she was rerouting traffic. Not just baiting boar, engineering migration patterns, funneling them right toward the houses. All to manufacture chaos, force families off their land, crash property values, then flip everything to a developer. The insurance claims would be the knockout punch families would have to sell cheap. She wasn't just power tripping, she was running a criminal playbook. Here's the twist, though, Granny. Rose Thompson, 78, retired teacher keeper of the town's secrets. When I showed her the footage, she just nodded, poured tea, and started pulling up spreadsheets on a laptop that looked way too new for her porch. She'd mapped property sales insurance claims and developer acquisitions for 2 years, 3 towns, same pattern. HOA shows up. Crisis hits. Families sell low. Developer buys everything. Crisis vanishes. She had names, dates. Even the company's Marcus Webb Development had bought up 2,000 acres, always at a bargain. Your Karen isn't running an HOA. Rose said she's running a land scam. I visited those towns, Pine Valley, Oak Ridge Heights, Sunset Acres, talked to folks who'd lost everything. Their stories matched sudden animal attacks, insurance canceled, HOA threats, forced sales. And when I toured the brand new luxury resorts, not a single sign of wildlife control, no fencing, no warnings, nothing. It was all theater just to clear out the locals. Back home, I found surveillance cameras in my oaks hidden, but not hidden enough, transmitting live to a shell company run by the developer's nephew. Detailed files on every family, how much insurance, who'd resist eviction, who'd cave after a single incident. Karen had been studying us in the wild boar, what bait to use when they were most aggressive, how to stage the most damaging attack. It was war, and she'd mapped the whole battlefield. Called Tommy. He dug up worse. Pierce's daughter ran the resort project, and the councilman owned stock in all the supply companies. When Tommy's captain warned him off, he knew the corruption went statewide. That night, I decided no more waiting. Karen wanted to use the boar as weapons. I'd show her what happens when you mess with a rancher who spent 40 years earning their respect. Wild boar are smart, loyal, and stubborn as hell. They don't forget who's good to them or who tricks them. So I built a food corridor, rerouting the boar away from the houses and toward Meadowbrook Estates, Karen's perfectly manicured, wildlife-free paradise. While I was at it, Granny Rose discovered Karen's HOA was never legally established, rejected by the county, operating on fake authority, every action void. Even better, the developer had been paying taxes on land they didn't own yet, so sure of their scam, they'd put it in writing. When the boar arrived at Karen's, it was like pay-per-view. A 300-pound sow made herself at home in the rose garden. The alpha male plopped onto that Italian sofa, and the rest trampled the lawns like a stampede at the Kentucky Derby. I watched from my fence, coffee in hand, savoring the chaos. That same morning, our whole community gathered in my barn, 47 folks, 3 county commissioners, and Tommy in uniform. I laid out months of evidence footage of Karen's late-night baiting, the fraudulent HOA, the developer's paper trail, everything. Then, for a little dramatic flair, we tuned in live to Karen's security cameras as she tried and failed to chase off the boar with a broom, screaming for the cops' insurance, anyone who'd listen. The sheriff announced the HOA was a fraud. Granny Rose stood up and laid out the wider conspiracy: 4 counties, millions stolen, Pierce in deep. Just then, Pierce barged in with his private security, barking that I was under arrest for wildlife terrorism, but Tommy was ready, warrant in hand, and the community behind him. Pierce and his goons retreated fast. The alpha boar took a special interest in his expensive car. And well, sometimes justice has hooves and a taste for luxury leather. Karen tried to fight back with a $3 million lawsuit, but all it did was bring in the feds, reporters, prosecutors, the whole circus. The FBI linked her scheme to a multi-state operation, dozens of communities ruined for profit, her own files reading like a how-to manual for corporate fraud. Insurance refused to pay anyone's claims. Intentional wildlife attraction is a big no-no. The developer was arrested, fleeing the country. Pierce resigned before his warrant hit, and Karen, the self-declared queen of Meadowbrook Estates, found herself broke, homeless, and facing 25 years behind bars. 6 months later, I sat on the porch of her old house, now the Thornfield Wildlife Sanctuary, drawing eco-tourists from everywhere. The alpha boar still lounges on the Italian couch, and my grandfather's Winchester is back above the fireplace. Our community learned the hard way that the best defense isn't just fences or firearms. It's watching out for each other, standing up to bullies, and knowing the land better than any outsider ever could. So have you ever watched someone abuse their power, thinking nobody'd ever stand up to them? You ever see a community turn the tables and expose the whole rotten system? This story's proof it's possible when folks get smart, stick together, and refuse to be pushed out. So tell me, who was right, who was wrong? Does the end justify the means? Drop your thoughts below, because I guarantee this isn't the last HOA drama you'll see here. If you want more real stories of justice and wild twists, stick around, hit like, and share your own battle scars, because out here, the only thing stronger than a bad idea is a community that won't back down.